Emery's heart pounded as he stared at Julian, disbelief and a rush of conflicting emotions swirling inside him. Julian stepped closer, every movement precise and confident, the air around him practically magnetic. "I'm Julian Halstead," Julian said softly but firmly, meeting Emery's eyes and seeing the shock in them. He continued, "I should have told you sooner." Emery cut him off, voice trembling with frustration and betrayal. "You are the Julian Halstead? You deceived me?" Julian raised his hands, a hint of remorse in his expression. "I promise I'll explain everything, Emery. Please, just hear me out." Before Emery could respond, a cold, commanding voice interrupted them. "Back off. Emery is my fiancé." Rupert stepped forward, eyes sharp and unwavering, his presence imposing. Julian didn't flinch. Instead, a faint smirk played on his lips. "Fiancé?" he repeated, his tone almost teasing but with a dangerous edge. "Let me remind you, Rupert, Emery isn't marrying you out of love. He's doing it because your wealth benefits his family. Let's be honest, in the end, who's richer decides who he's with." Rupert's jaw tightened, his voice low and threatening. "You're overstepping. Emery is mine. Stay away or I promise you'll be sorry." Julian's smirk deepened, unwavering. "I don't think so." He stepped even closer, his presence dominating. "I'm not here to play games. I want him. And I won't back down." Just then, Devin Montgomery appeared, trying to intervene, waving his hands and attempting to mediate. Boys, let's not make a scene." Julian cut him off, his voice carrying effortlessly over the murmurs of the crowd. "No, Mr. Montgomery. I will not let this go any longer. Emery is not marrying Rupert. I want him and I'm asking you formally, withdraw your decision to force him into a marriage with Rupert Costner." Gasps spread through the crowd. Emery froze, his mind spinning, a mix of shock, anger and confusion tightening in his chest. He had not expected Julian to make such a bold declaration, least of all in front of everyone. Feeling cornered and overwhelmed, he spun on his heel and stormed out of the grand hall, ignoring everyone's calls. Hale, who had been watching from a distance, clenched his fists, jaw tight with fury and disbelief. "Unbelievable," he muttered, his entire body tense. Every bit of pride and ego inside him burned as he watched Julian openly challenge Rupert and even his father. Meanwhile, Emery stumbled into the backyard, rain beginning to fall in gentle sheets over the garden. He barely noticed the water soaking through his clothes, his mind too crowded with thoughts of betrayal and confusion. Thunder rumbled in the distance, echoing the storm within Emery. He didn't care about getting wet. All he could feel was the weight of Julian's deception, and the undeniable pull he still felt toward the man who had just claimed him so publicly. Julian pushed open the garden gate, his coat clinging damply to his frame from the rain, and spotted Emery huddled on the bench, arms wrapped around himself. His heart ached at the sight. Julian hurried over, each step purposeful, his own frustration and longing simmering beneath the surface. "Emery, wait," Julian called, his voice catching slightly against the rain. Emery whirled around, eyes blazing, and cut him off before he could take another step. "Don't come any closer," his voice trembled with anger, though it was clear his heart was cracking under the weight of everything he'd just learned. "Was it fun for you? Deceiving me? Watching me? Making me believe you were this poor fisherman when you were actually Julian Halstead, my benefactor?" Julian flinched, the sting in Emery's words striking deeper than he expected. He had anticipated anger, even disbelief, but not this raw sense of betrayal. "Emery, I didn't mean." "You didn't mean?" Emery's voice rose, echoing in the rain-soaked courtyard. "Were you just teasing me like you used to? Pushing me around emotionally, watching me spin in circles while you, what? Pretend to care?" He stood abruptly, water dripping off his hair and shoulders, fury and hurt flashing in his eyes. Julian held up his hands, unable to interrupt. He took a breath, steadying himself. "Emery, listen to me." No." Emery snapped, stepping back, shaking his head. Don't you dare try to explain. Just tell me why now. Why suddenly announce to my father that you want me? Especially when it wasn't so long ago you were with my brother." Julian's chest tightened and he stepped closer, carefully closing the distance but keeping his tone calm, sincere. "Because I like you. More than anyone else. More than I thought I could handle." Emery blinked, speechless, his body tense. "I'm not sure how it started. Maybe it was from the first day I saw you, when you almost got hit by that car. I have no idea. I don't know how deep my feelings for you go." "Not fully," Julian admitted, voice low, almost a whisper above the rain. But I know it's deep enough to make me expose everything, the Julian Halstead identity I've kept hidden all this time. Deep enough to want to be with you, to be around you constantly. Deep enough to go crazy at the thought of you being with anyone else. Julian's hand reached toward Emery, trembling slightly, as if offering both reassurance and a promise. I promise when the time comes I'll tell you everything, the full truth. But for now, you have to trust me. Trust that I have the best interest. For you. Emery's breath caught, a storm of emotions coursing through him. Anger, disbelief, and an undeniable pull toward Julian. He wanted to yell, to reject him, to run, but something about Julian's gaze, so intense, so vulnerable beneath all that confidence, rooted him in place. Julian took a small step closer, his voice softening. Emery, I want to marry you. I know it sounds sudden, I know it's complicated, but I'm asking you here now to consider it. I will prove to you that you can be better off with me, I promise. The rain fell harder around them, washing over their tangled emotions, and for a long moment neither spoke. And in that tense silence, Emery realized he couldn't ignore the pull between them, no matter how complicated everything was. Julian led Emery back into the grand ballroom. Guests turned, whispering and staring as whispers of the couple's entrance began to ripple through the crowd. Emery walked beside him, still flushed and flustered from the proposal, his fingers lightly brushing against Julian's, a quiet reminder of the promise they had just made. Devon appeared immediately, his eyes wide with delight as he approached them. You both are drenched. Do try to dry off. Julian met his gaze confidently, a small smile tugging at his lips. Mr. Montgomery, I'm glad to inform you that Emery has accepted my marriage proposal, he announced, his voice steady, echoing across the room. A gasp rose from the crowd, followed by murmurs and shocked whispers. Rupert's face darkened, his jaw tightening as he stepped back, the fury in his eyes almost palpable. Hale, standing a few feet away, looked like he had been physically struck. His hands curled into fists, and his chest heaved as he tried to control his temper. Olivia, seated with her usual composed elegance, tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing ever so subtly. Devon clapped his hands together, unable to hide his joy. Wonderful. This changes everything. Julian, I want you to meet with me at my house tomorrow morning. There are things we need to discuss regarding your future together, and the family, of course. Julian nodded smoothly. Of course, Mr. Montgomery. I'll be there. Before moving off, Julian leaned down slightly, capturing Emery's hand in his own. He touched his chin, then kissed his hand gently, deliberately in front of the crowd, making Emery flush even deeper. I'll see you soon, he murmured gently. As Julian moved toward the exit with Nikki trailing behind him, Hale wasn't about to let him leave without a fight. He stalked forward, following him as soon as he was out the door, his voice low but sharp. What exactly do you think you're doing, Julian? What was that? Julian stopped, his back straight and expression calm, almost teasingly so. My intentions, Hale, are quite obvious. I want to marry Emery, he said, his tone smooth but deliberate. He is better than you in every way, more considerate, honest, compassionate. I want him as my partner because he's the kind of man anyone would be lucky to have. Hale's face contorted with rage. You won't get him. I swear, I'll make sure this marriage never happens. Julian's gaze softened, almost pitying, but it carried steel beneath it. I don't know how you plan to stop it. I fell for you once, Hale, but that was a mistake. You were empty hollow. I won't make that mistake again. Do not do anything to hurt Emery, or I will make sure you regret it. Hale's lips twisted into a snarl as he stepped back, chest heaving with fury. You think I'm bluffing? I know your secrets, Julian. And if Emery ever finds out who you truly are, he will hate you. Hate you forever. Julian paused for a heartbeat, the weight of Hale's words striking him, but he didn't show fear. We'll see, he murmured, turning gracefully toward the car waiting outside. Inside the sleek, black vehicle, Julian exhaled deeply, trying to shake off the tension. He glanced at Nikki, who sat beside him, her brow slightly furrowed. Do you think Hale knows? About me being Julian St. Clair? Nikki gave him a confident shake. Don't worry about that. Hale is all talk. He's jealous, petty and dangerous, yes, but he doesn't know your secret. And I doubt he ever will. Julian leaned back, letting out a slow breath, though a flicker of worry still lingered in his chest. I hope you're right, he murmured. At the party, Emery stood beside Rupert, the tension between them thick in the air. Rupert? I'm sorry, Emery said softly, his gaze dropping for a moment. I can't accept your proposal. Rupert's eyes darkened, frustration and hurt flickering across his face. "Why, Emery?" he demanded, his voice low but sharp. "Is it because you're in love with that man? That man who clearly lied and deceived you?" His words carried the edge of accusation. Before Emery could answer, Devon appeared beside them, his usual booming presence cutting through the tension. "Emery, come on. Let's head home," he said firmly, placing a hand on his son's shoulder. As they moved toward the exit, Olivia suddenly intercepted them, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. Her smile was sharp, almost venomous. "Well, Devon, you must be thrilled," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "All these rich men lining up to be your in-law. How quaint." Devon didn't flinch. His gaze hardened and his voice carried a chilling calm. "Isn't that wonderful? Although it's a shame. I don't think you'll be able to take over my company again," he said smoothly, each word deliberate, cutting through her sarcasm like a knife. He then motioned for Emery and Hale to continue, leaving Olivia standing there, her eyes blazing with barely contained rage. By the time they got home, Devon's mood had shifted entirely to triumph. He clapped his hands together, turning to Emery with a proud smile. "Well done, son. Finally, you've done something worthwhile for this family," he exclaimed, his voice echoing through the house. "Grabbing a Halstead. One of the most powerful billionaire families. I never knew you had it in you." Emery winced slightly at the praise, uncomfortable with the attention, but remained quiet, letting his father revel in his victory. Devon's mind, however, was already racing ahead. He strode toward his study, muttering to himself, preparing for the crucial meeting with Julian the next morning. "Tomorrow we secure everything. Emery may have made the right choice for the family, but this meeting, this is where I make sure it all goes my way," he whispered, eyes gleaming with a mix of calculation and ambition. Hale, meanwhile, trailed behind, silent, watching his father with a mix of irritation and resignation, letting Devon's excitement dominate the atmosphere of the house. Emery stood in his room, slowly unbuttoning his shirt, his mind elsewhere. Thoughts of Julian danced relentlessly through his head. The way he had appeared at the ball, the confession of his true identity, the way his presence seemed to pull Emery in even when he tried to resist. He paused for a moment, his hands trembling slightly, lost in the swirl of emotions. The sound of the door crashing open startled him, and before he could react, Hale stormed in, his eyes blazing with fury. "Emery," he barked, his voice low and dangerous. "Don't even think about marrying Julian." Emery froze, a mix of surprise and irritation crossing his face. "Hale, what are you doing here?" he asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Hale stepped closer, leaning in with a predatory intensity. "That man is not what you think he is," he hissed. "He doesn't care about you, he just wants to use you. You are like a game to him. You think he's some noble, selfless angel? No. He's hiding who he really is, and if you're stupid enough to trust him, you'll regret it." Emery's jaw tightened, his resolve firm. "Hale, I've made up my mind," he said calmly, his voice cool despite the heat rising in his chest. "I'm not going to let you manipulate me." Hale's lips curled into a bitter, knowing smirk. "Oh, I see," he said. "You think you know him? You really think you can understand Julian? You have no idea what you're walking into. Do you know what it feels like to be with him? When he makes you scream his name, to feel his hands on you making you tremble for more?" Emery's eyes widened, a flush creeping across his face. "Hale, stop," he snapped, stepping back, his heart hammering against his ribs. But Hale didn't stop. He leaned closer, his words dripping with manipulation and spite. "I've been there, Emery. I know how he reacts, how he craves someone to please him. Only I know him. Only I can make him happy, can make him feel alive. You think you can? You think you can handle what I've already given him?" Emery's fists clenched, his face burning with jealousy and frustration. "Enough," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Stop talking like that." Hale's smirk widened, satisfaction glittering in his eyes. "See? That's all I needed to do," he said, stepping back. "Now you're thinking. Now you're wondering. But remember this, Emery, you don't really know him. You don't know the secrets he keeps, the darkness he hides. Be careful, this is my last warning." Without waiting for a response, Hale turned on his heel and stormed out, slamming the door so hard that the walls seemed to shake. Emery could only stare after him, feelings of jealousy and doubt welling up inside him. That night, the garden was quiet. Emery sat on a wrought iron bench. The cool night air did little to calm the storm of thoughts raging inside him. He couldn't stop thinking about Julian, about the way he had confessed, about the intensity in his eyes, about the promise of his feelings. But then Hale's words echoed in his mind, sharp and poisonous, planting seeds of doubt. Did Julian really like him, or was it just another game? Could he trust him after all the secrets and deceptions? He barely noticed Caroline approaching until she softly spoke. "Master Emery, it's late. You should be getting to bed." He shook his head. I need to think a little longer," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight of fatigue and frustration. Caroline nodded, settling onto the bench beside him. She was older, gentle, and wise, and somehow her presence made the night feel less heavy. "I understand," she said softly. "I've heard about the engagement, to Lord Halstead, wasn't it?" Emery hesitated, looking away toward the garden path. "Yes," he admitted, his voice low. "But I don't know if I can trust him. All this, him pretending to be a fisherman, coming into my life, helping with the shelter. And now, suddenly wanting to marry me. And then, hell, he was with my brother, the two of them used to." He took a deep breath. "And now, I don't know what to believe." Caroline sighed. "None of that matters, Emery. What matters is how he makes you feel. Not what he pretended to be, not the mistakes of the past, not your brother. How does this Julian man make you feel when you're with him?" Emery's chest tightened. He couldn't help but soften, recalling the small moments. Julian teasing him, watching him as he worked with the people at the shelter, the careful way he had tended to him after he fell into the water, the kiss that had left his heart racing and his thoughts tangled. I don't know," he admitted, his voice almost a whisper. "There are moments when it feels like he's exactly who I've been missing. Sometimes he even feels like Julian St. Clair. But I can't be sure what's real or what's just in my head." Caroline nodded, understanding in her eyes. "Then don't rush to decide, Master Emery. Take the time to truly get to know him. Watch how he acts, how he cares for others, how he treats you. Let yourself see the real him before you make any choice. Don't let doubt or past fears cloud your judgment." Emery exhaled slowly, feeling some of the weight in his chest ease. I suppose you're right." Caroline gave him a small smile. "I'm also very glad you rejected Rupert," she added softly, her eyes twinkling with relief. "He's always given me the creeps. Even as a boy, he was obsessive and unsettling." Emery let out a small laugh, the tension in his shoulders loosening just a little. I hope I can figure this out," he said, more to himself than to her. Caroline patted his hand gently. "You will, Master Emery. Just give yourself time and let your heart speak. The answers will come when you're ready." Emery nodded, staring up at the moonlit sky. For the first time that night, he felt a small glimmer of peace, a quiet resolve to understand his own heart before making any decisions about Julian or anyone else. Meanwhile, at his mansion, Julian sat behind the massive mahogany desk, papers spread out before him in neat, precise lines. Yet his mind wasn't on the numbers or contracts. Every few moments, his thoughts drifted to Emery, how he had looked tonight, the storm of emotions in his eyes, the quiet way he had withdrawn when Julian had spoken. Nikki entered quietly, carrying 2 steaming cups of coffee. The aroma filled the room, but Julian barely noticed. "You've really stirred things up, haven't you?" Nikki said lightly, setting 1 cup in front of Julian. He gave a short, distracted nod. Nikki pulled out a chair and sat across from him, his expression more serious now. "Look, now that you've revealed yourself as Julian Halstead and declared your intention to marry Emery, you have responsibilities. You can't just act on impulse. If you want him safe, if you want him to trust you fully, you'll have to put aside your revenge against Devon Montgomery. He can't be collateral damage in your schemes." Julian ran a hand through his hair, a faint shadow crossing his face. "I'll consider it," he said softly, almost to himself. "For Emery's sake, I'll put things into perspective. I can't risk him getting hurt because of my grudges." Nikki studied him carefully. "You know he doesn't trust you, right? He's guarded more than anyone I've ever seen. And with good reason. But if you truly want him to let his guard down, to see the real you, you'll have to prove that you're worthy of that trust." Julian's jaw tightened. "I'll do whatever it takes," he murmured. His voice had an edge to it, the weight of his emotions pressing down hard. "I'll let him see everything I want him to see. But it's complicated. He doesn't know the truth of who I really am, and he's not ready for it." Nikki tilted her head. "When are you planning to tell him the truth about being Julian St. Clair? You can't keep it hidden forever." Julian's expression changed instantly, the warmth in his eyes vanishing, replaced by a hard, almost impenetrable edge, and leaned back in his chair. "I don't know yet," he said finally, his voice cold, clipped. Not until the time is right. And perhaps, not until I'm certain he's ready. Nicky sighed, sensing the storm brewing within him. Thanks for watching. Do like and subscribe to the channel for more episodes.